Okay, the seasonal protocol. I'm welcoming you to my book with the book reading. This is a forward. It's not really about reading the book, but it's more about talking about the book. This is designed to be a meditative or contemplative book. Why? Well, because my history was meditative or contemplative in the first third of my life, or first half of my life, depends how you want to count that. So, you know, so I would say that it's important to use this kind of verbiage or wordage to show that we have a method, which is essentially that we're communicating. It's not really about research. The book is based on research, but I didn't write it based on research. I wrote it based on my memory. So basically, that's kind of what this is. This was like a natural method based on me not doing any more of that research stuff because I don't have time for it now. I just will do this thing about me, how I'm eating, what it means to me. Well, you can think about it, contemplate it, meditate it, but it's not much more than that. It's no longer research at that point. You can think about things and do this for yourself. My goal was to generate useful thoughts about food methodology, simple reflections that help you feel comfortable with your future thoughts and choices. Well, there's so many ways to think about comfort. Uh, Food needs method. So, what method? Now, what I like about this useful method is that you can think about it, basically, and when you think about it, you can decide if you want to progress or stop. Now, if you don't want to continue, you do something else. You don't have to progress down the carnivore or keto route if you don't want to. So, basically, simple thoughts can be something like when you do this with others and you need to eat right, this will help you to model those conversations. Okay? Doesn't mean that it'll help you say the things that are, that you need based on what's in the book, but it'll help you think about things so you can decide what you want to say and do. So, next is that your future is full of thoughts. And I live a life without pain, which means my thoughts are unplugged from all that pain. I got 0 out of 10 pain, which means I don't have to deal with thought and pain the way I used to when I was younger. So my choices are different than they would have been if I didn't do this for me. Okay? It doesn't mean that I couldn't one day go back to carbohydrates if I wanted to. I don't have a reason to want to right now. But if I ever did, then it would be something like, well, then that's what that would be. Okay? So at that point, you can adapt to whatever you want to physically because there's a lot of resources out there to understand your body and decide what you want to do. So I would say it didn't take more than 2,000 hours. I took about 1,100 in a college course, worked a little bit as well in the medical industry, and I focused mostly on food after because I was like, during that time I was doing food and I was loving my achievement, what was happening with me. So, that's kind of it. Okay, so next, I set out a list of facts from personal experience. My method was one of direct oral dictation to AI. Okay, I work in AI. AI is my job, so I get free AI machines, and I was there before a lot of these machines were being launched because I was just like last year for over a year now, and I was loving using those machines. They do way more than stuff in the market, but then I think stuff in the market is catching up now. Some of the stuff in the market is better than what we're working with, and we have to use it. I got a project now that's asking me to subscribe, and they'll pay me back for it. But anyway, so I dictated it in like a single session. Basically, it took me a few days after to finish writing the book, and then I just by answering the questions to AI, and so the verbiage there is my words, basically things that I said. What I mean that I am answering problems, and then I simply didn't include the questions. I simply just use that as a way to think about those kinds of issues. Because I'm not really qualified to answer those questions. When you have intensive questions, it's more like, well, here's the model that I would use to eat right. And I've used this model for me to be comfortable. Anyway. Okay, so I spoke to the AI. My answers to specific thematic questions about human physiology, nutrition, and the carnivore and keto lifestyles. Most of the content was generated while thinking of protein. So I wrote this book with questions of protein in mind, but the problems of keto and carnivore go beyond protein. So I tended to focus on protein this time just because it was what was, the first thing I took off the path. And I'm satisfied with the result. I like what I did. So I acquired a professional foundation in medical terminology by attending Canscribe Career College, which you can find my YouTube link if you want to go there for yourself, and worked briefly as a medical transcriptionist in multiple hospital departments. I appreciate if you use my link if you're going to go, because I get something for that. As long as you're successful, like you finish enough of the course. The book of my nutritional experience is derived from the teachings of YouTube Dr. Eric Berg and Dr. Ken Berry, which I was following Dr. Berg for a very long time, for a few years, and Dr. Ken Berry. And I would say I spent a lot, most of my things I was doing on YouTube last year, most of it was Dr. Berg. So, and then Dr. Ken Berry. The only thing that was more than Dr. Berg was music. And I watched like 1,000 Dr. Berg videos though, so I was fairly intensive in his model. And I was like watching it and doing stuff about it over and over and over again. It was really, really fun. Dr. Kim Berry is amazing. I love his carnivore method because I'm carnivore. And he was a really simple solution for me to get past my basic challenge, which was I want to get past those sugars and carbohydrates and stuff. And now that I got that mostly organized, I can do keto if I want to, but I'm going to keep doing this carnivore thing because I absolutely love what's happening with me. Okay, I did not use them as references during the production of this book. Okay, so it means like I use them as references because I studied them intensively for years, but mostly Dr. Berg, and I use Dr. Ken Berry's model, and I use Dr. Berg to understand that about myself. I use Dr. Berg to understand what I'm doing about carnivore, but I'm using carnivore. So essentially, they're the reason that I know what this stuff is. So in a sense, that is my reference point. Okay. But I didn't look at those materials while making this. I don't really go on there much anymore because I don't have time. What I'm doing now is actually just remembering and bringing it out. Okay. Because that's what I'm doing in my personal life. And when I do this, then it's kind of my limit. I won't really go further or be more intensively academic about this process in any way. My method is a model that probably works for me, having used online study resources for years to support my food customs. Okay, this content, about a few years. This content is not a rehashing of third-party articles or a synthesis of textbooks. Okay, so it means I'm not taking this out of textbooks and then just like giving it to you in new words, that kind of thing, like making things out of it new or paraphrasing or stuff like that. I'm not making stuff out of it. I'm not doing the same thing about third-party articles or anything like that. I actually just do this from memory now, and I'm kind of busy to do other things, right? Because I want to be an accountant. So is dictated entirely from memory, drawing on the knowledge I have absorbed from these teachers and have lived my own experience for many years. It is dictated entirely from memory, drawing on the knowledge I have absorbed from these teachers and my own lived experience for many years. I needed a different cadence with that. I did not pause in favor of research, teachers, and my own lived experience for many years. I did not pause in favor of research during the writing of this book. I used a search engine perhaps once or twice to verify a detail, but the rest is a direct transfer of what I know and believe. I use the ideas usually to feel very comfortable on a regular basis, and I believe they're worth passing on. I'm getting to the end of the day, just about done for the day. I'm malnourished because I need to go eat. So yeah, I think there's a nutrient associated to skipping a line by going back up instead of going down. Or skipping would be like down, and then So when you kind of crisscross lines like that, I think it's a particular nutrient. I should look it up, but again, it's one of those things where I'm kind of done. I just got to go get nourished. I've got me organized right now. If it keeps happening, I can look it up, kind of thing. And it's kind of like usual, I think, with people. And you got to be like, cool, there's a symptom based on how you read. What do I need to eat for that? Okay, the AI served as my scribe, my organizer, and my interviewer. Its role is strictly limited. It did not generate opinions. It did not invent facts. It did not write the meditations. AI wrote the directives that explain each meditation in easier words. I hope those directives are helpful. So directives are these kinds of things. I'll give you a quick example. So this is me. There is no information about food education in youth. The system assumes children cannot understand it, leaving resilience on families who are not qualified. So what I'm saying is what? Consider what you were never taught. So under that kind of constraints, what does it mean again? there was no information about food education in youth. When I was young, I did not have food education. I could have written that more specifically, but I'm not trying to get more specific because it's like, who's youth? Well, I was youth. Other people are youth. Other people are youth now, right? So there's youth, there's education, there's different factors, and you can kind of crisscross time and person and things like that. You kind of figure out what you want to. So the system assumes children cannot understand it. What is the system? The system. Well, the system would be like the system I knew was like it was assumed that I cannot understand things, right? And when I cannot understand it, they said I have to be reliant on a family to help me understand this. But my family's not qualified. I did not have a family who was qualified to feed me because I wasn't okay with those foods. But they thought that was the best, right? So what am I going to do? Well, I had to wait until I learned how to eat differently. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes people don't match diets. In fact, it's usually like that. It's often like that. So you can think something like, consider what you were never taught. You were not taught this stuff. You had to kind of figure that out. So, and that's normal self-management. It doesn't make it that easier. Let's take another example. Directive, calculate your current protein ratio today. Okay, so this is something you should be doing. This was written by AI. This was by me. Protein is a necessary nutrient, ideally around 20% of total caloric intake. Okay, now you could get more specific about macro ratios. You could go on the Canada or your government website to find out what are macro ratios, what and for what diet and stuff like that. The cool part about protein is that it's the same in any diet, for example. So if I thought about that, I would have put it elsewhere. But it's something like it's a range. Sure, it's a range, but think about something static. Like 20% is a cool static concept, and then you get a little bit more flexible with the static, right, based on what you're doing and what you need. But generally speaking, 20% is fairly reliable, and you got to like think about protein a bit, right? And think, what does that mean? So calculate your current protein ratio today. Anyway, these are helpful ways to understand how the book can be used. Another thing is that there are seasons, okay? Because I went up for a year cycle. I came from a place that used to do things for the year, so I'm like, let's do a year cycle. I did 4 seasons. I did days. I didn't do every day of the year, but here's some thoughts for the days. Here's a thought for a day. And it takes time to practice it. If that's useful, then go find out protein stuff, right? And you go do whatever research you want. Do you want to go study up on it, or you want to try it? What does it mean to count my protein, or figure out this 20% protein in my caloric intake, stuff like that. And then you can keep doing things, create activities or tasks for yourself based on what you feel like or want to do. If you don't, just learn. If you want to do something else, you can learn to do those tasks and be like, then what does that mean when I do something else? So when you look at other things in the book, you might think that's contradictory or that agrees. If it agrees, good, amazing. If it contradicts, you might be like, either it contradicts and you should learn that it agrees, and that's not a contradiction because you have 2 problems and you need to separate them, and now both are true. You don't have to be wrong. You could also look at things and be like, maybe this contradicts what I need. You can understand what that means. You can be like, if there's a contradiction, then compare and think like, not really about what is wrong about it. Try to think about, what does it match? Does this match a continuum that makes sense to somebody? Or does mine match a continuum that makes sense to me, but it's definitely different than somebody else? So be a bit flexible with these concepts. It's just something like, these are good working principles to get really comfortable. So I wish you have a good future. That's my forward, and take care.